And what's there?
You got the two. You got a miniature and
Yes, I have nothing.
it's a small view and it's a large view.
Then how do I maximize her?
Did you
There
guys
you go.
all
Drag
get
her.
copies of these?
There you go.
There you go. Can you hear us, Tina? Oh, turn your mic on.
Get,
Can you hear us, Tina?
can't hear her.
Yes,
Were you
I
on
can.
mute?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on
I
mute for a
was,
little
I
bit.
was. Okay, okay.
Don't do this to me again.
I'm not trying.
Are these, oh, for Jeff or me?
Those are for you.
Oh, thank you.
I think Cassie. Because she got
No, it's
a heavy
fine.
shower. So
Right, no, it's,
do my other stuff.
right, it's fine.
Jeff's not gonna vote.
Okay. I mean,
He's not doing any of this stuff.
we can continue to, just pass these down to the other, I mean, there's more than what needs to be passed down, but,
Oh, this is from the phone.
yeah. And then there's one for you.
Are you ready, darling?
I thought we started it.
Say what?
Wait a minute.
I think she already started it, so I think we're good.
Wait a minute, let me just make sure. I think we're on, Scott.
You good to go, Darlene?
Cool. You'll need that.
Darlene, yes?
We're ready.
Okay.
No, you'll have to press the button.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. You can stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're gonna start off the meeting tonight. We have Nicole here from Drescher Malecki. They did the 2023 financial records update, and Tina DeNegro from LGSS did 2024. Nicole?
Yep, my name is Nicole Ruff, and I'm from Drescher Malecki.
Make sure you talk right into that because it's,
The purpose of what we were looking at is to take a look at 2023 and first start with just beginning balances and make sure that they agreed to what was issued in the prior year financial statements, and then it wasn't just a roll forward year, there was a new software implemented, so make sure that what was audited in 2022 is what the town began with in 2023, and then reconcile cash for the 2023 year. I guess I'll go through what we found first, and then I'll explain the documents that I brought with us. So, just starting off, what things that we found. So going back to 2022, your audit had about outstanding checks of $750. What we found was that there was actually about $33,000 outstanding checks, $33,371. So what that means is when you look at your audit from 2022, cash was overstated by $32,000. There wasn't any deposits in transit on those bank recs, so it just makes me questionable of whether those existed. I could not identify any, but I would assume that in your water fund, which we'll talk about later, there probably is deposits in transit. 2023, so this is when the shift happened from KBS to the Williamson law books. When you start implementation of a software, your beginning balances should always agree to what was audited. If you have an audit, so it should agree to what was audited, ending balances from the prior year. Those opening balances never agreed to the 2002 audited amounts, and so what I'll go through with you later is that there is several proposed adjustments to make sure that those amounts agreed. So some of the things that I found were just certain bank accounts were never actually even created in the general ledger, and then only cash accounts were created. So part of what I did, even though I was only hired to reconcile your cash, you wouldn't have been able to move forward with the audit if your fund balance hadn't been reconciled. So one of the most important things every single year is to make sure that your fund balance agrees to the prior year audited financial statement. So otherwise you're starting off at a whole different amount than you ended with the previous year. So I also did that in addition to the reconciliation of cash. So what happened is that only the cash accounts were created in the new Williamson Law software, so there was no balances carried forward for any of your accruals. So if your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, your unearned revenue, none of those balances were established, which means none of that fund balance was established. So it was never going to tie if those balances weren't created. Your account structure was also significantly changed. So, for instance, you have a computer account, which is the account that all of your checks get issued through. You're clearing your disbursement account. In your old system, that was one general ledger account. In the new system, they made that 18 accounts. So it became very confusing. The code structure changed, so the 204 accounts became 200 accounts, the 200s became 201s, the 201s became 202s. So as you as I looked through the year, you could kind of see there was this confusion of what the account structure was, and then it became more evident that towards the end of the year, the process was starting to like work better. So it was starting to, the reconciliations were getting a little bit closer towards the end of the year. Generally, so, if there was one bank account to one GL account, there wasn't many errors. It's in these accounts where there's one bank account across all of the funds, because when you have your account set up that way and an error happens, it's really hard to identify what fund that the error happened in, because it could be any of those in that bank account. Some of the process that we did, so normally when you are reconciling a bank statement, it doesn't, or doing a bank reconciliation, it doesn't reconcile, you would take the bank statement, and you would take your general ledger, and you would go back and forth to say like, this matches this to this. It was really not, that could not happen because of the way that the account structure was, and the amount of transfers that were made between bank accounts, where there was just so many transfers made, they didn't really tie to anything in the GL, we kind of tested some of the controls first to just see like where maybe some of the errors happened. Like we weren't finding, in this whole process, never anything that was like intentionally done wrong. We, for example, went through every single check that was written from the account, made sure that it hit the bank statement, checked that to the GL. We only found 2 checks actually that were written they were written in an amount that was coded differently than the GL. So we only had 2 corrections on the check side of it. ACH payments is a little bit different. So when you have an ACH payment, so that's going to be like your NYSE, your Independent Health, your Verizon, your payment to a retirement system, waste management, where you just are wiring the funds. You physically have to go into the system, move the money out of your savings account per each fund. So like maybe like Independent Health, you're paying out of your general, your highway, and your highway outside village fund. You have to move them out of 3 accounts into the other 3 accounts, and then make that payment, and then record it that way in the GL too. So what I found was that when a general journal was required and the system wasn't automatically doing it, that's where I found a lot of the corrections. So in those ACH payments, the cash receipt side of it looked pretty good. The water accounts, we had talked about, is where I think that there's probably some work to do still in the future, in that the water system isn't directly in the general ledger. So water payments are kind of being collected outside of the general ledger and being posted to the general ledger, and there's really just not a process that there's any like reconciliation done between the two that I can tell. It was a little bit hard to do, obviously, without being able to ask someone who did it at the time, but I think that there needs to be some sort of reconciliation process done there in the future. So I'll go to the 3 things that I passed out to you. The first one that has the columns of numbers on it, and it's only 2 pages long, that's going to be a summary of where I began, the adjustments that I made, and then the final ending balances. So you'll see that there's a column unadjusted 12/31/2023. It goes through by fund. Your total that was recorded in your GL is $3,372,000. And then I made certain, they're called AJDs and RJs. Those are just like my own internal like classifications of me trying to organize how certain adjustments were made. But as you can see, I think I ended up with about 34 different adjustments, which then brought you to your balance of $3,662,697. So your cash balance started lower. We had to add cash to it, so cash wasn't lower. The more thicker handout that has all of the adjustment in it, that's going to be the proposed entries. So these are the entries that I'm proposing to correct your cash balances then in 2023. So it's really going to be a combination of those things that I kind of talked about with the checks, the ACHs, not establishing actual bank accounts to begin with in the general ledger that existed in 2022. Just recording some interest and other miscellaneous, I guess, just adjustments. So when I went through a lot of just the general journals, you could kind of tell when there were times when it would say correction, and I would just kind of try to follow it through and make sure that the correction was truly what was trying to be done. So ARPA, for example, was kind of, which is confusing because it's not a normal, something that happens all of the time, and the way that ARPA is recorded is definitely different than normal, so that one, I did correct how some of the certain ARPA expenditures were recorded. And then the colored copy is where your bank recs stand at the end of the year. So, I mean, you would really, as a board, want to do something like this every single month. You'd want to see what are our total bank balances, where are our outstanding checks, and what is our reconciled bank balances compared to total cash for your trial balance. And I guess just going through everything, I didn't really see any of that during the year of 2023, so, and I'm not sure that the reports that would be the file system would like tell you that what you were looking at was wrong necessarily. I just think that you really need to see some sort of other template of every single 200 cash account that you have on your GL versus what bank statements that you have every single month. So this is just a summary. This obviously has changed. This is 2023. You guys have, I know this from talking to Tina, made a lot of changes from since then. So you have different accounts, bank accounts now. But at this point in time, this is where your bank accounts were at. You can see, look at that blue portion. You have that computer account where it has the old code and the KVS code in that first column and what the new Williamson law code was. So it went from just being the 1A204 code to all of these codes. So that anytime any payment is being made for payroll or abstract, it has to move out of those 201 accounts into the 200 and then paid out of the 200. So there's just a lot of transactions that are happening based on the way that your accounts are set up. At this time, there is still a difference of, in total, 3,237. I'm not concerned at all about that. The balances, your bank balance is higher than what's in the GL, so there's not money missing. I've spent a lot of time just going through. I didn't find anything wrong, but it could just pertain back to, I don't think your cash balances were ever prior to this. So just finding the $33,000 outstanding checks, those were just from December of 2022. So if there had been outstanding checks before that, I wouldn't have known about them. I also wouldn't spend time trying to go back to find that amount at this point. But that would cause that $2,000 change. So it's not an amount that I'm concerned about in any manner. I think you could either write it off in this current year, or you could kind of carry it forward. I know, like, I'll work with Tina to get these balances to her, because she has to start with certain balances to move forward into 2024 and see kind of where you end up then. So, can I answer any questions for you?
Journal entry 27 just has a credit posting and no debit. So
There was
that's
a
because
one-sided entry.
the system was allowed to be unbalanced, debits and not equal credits.
I'm sorry, so this is a little small for me.
Sorry.
It's okay, even with my glasses on, it's not good. So you're saying at the end of 23, we had a $3,200, $3,300, whatever it is, $3,600 difference.
Yes.
The bank statements, the bank has more money than we do.
Yes.
Okay, so you said you could write it off. We wouldn't write it off, we'd add it to our bank, right? Or did I misunderstand your?
Yeah, I mean, you would add some sort of
Okay.
adjustment to that. I guess I just mean right off the difference.
Yeah.
Do some sort of.
Fix the difference, okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
You wanna ask about those?
But one thing is like,
Yeah, I will.
one thing I didn't mention is that at the end of 2023, there's obviously conversations that have been had with links and all that things aren't balancing out. And in any normal accounting system, you just roll forward your balances to the next year, but that didn't happen. They allowed you guys to start offering new balances in 2024, which creates a whole other issue. So, that balance, you may wanna just kind of like see where it goes and make sure it stays the same, because that balance may have corrected itself, but something, or she could have found something in 2024 and fixed it then.
Yeah.
There's definitely like things that happened between ending 2023 and then like where those beginning balances were established, to try to become closer to the bank statement. So, I wouldn't necessarily be in a rush just to like change this, but if it stays the same, then you're like, okay, that is something that existed, you know, probably before 2022, and it hasn't changed, so it's
In all your correcting entries, the reclassing here came out of 2023 activity.
correct.
So I guess I'm still, in my mind, trying to understand if in 2021, when we did our audit, we were off, I don't even remember what they said, 180,000 or whatever. How is it that has somehow fixed itself if everything you found was in?
They must have fixed it in their audit then.
Okay. I didn't think so. I mean, it's not kind of what the state, when they came in even in May of this year, I'm just trying to understand how we could find or correct something in 23 that might have happened in 17, 18, 19, years back, I guess.
So, my beginning is not to your system. My beginning at 1/1/2023 is the audited 22 financial statements. I can't trust anything else besides that. So they clearly made adjustments in their financials to agree to bank statements. So I would have gone off of that. So whatever they proposed to adjust, I just adjusted it. I didn't go back and forth. 12/31/22.
Yeah.
So before moving on to 2024, I guess you had proposed some adjustment to the audit with respect to the fact that you found a number of checks from 2022 that weren't accounted for in 2022, right? And so you had
So they
mentioned
were
to
recorded-
Joe.
Yeah, they were recorded as expenses, but they must have just made patchwork. So they should have, cash should have been $33,000 different on your financials.
Okay.
So how,
Right, how, so,
for 23, what do you recommend Joe do?
right,
Start the
So
balance,
that's
start
an
over?
audit, that's an audit thing, like they should have some sort of established
wanna say
threshold where,
thank
like, that's
you.
an error on those financials.
Yeah, he gave us 2 out.
Yeah, so if the error is below his threshold of allowing it, then he can just pass it through current. If it's above the threshold, what his materiality is, I don't know his audited materiality. You would have it as a known error and it just be disclosed as a known error. Potentially, it depends on how pervasive it is to each individual fund. I broke it down for him. How, if he would modify his opinion, I don't know.
okay.
But it all depends on the materiality.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions on?
My head spins and all that.
So,
Yeah.
in layman's terms, all of our accounts weren't transferred over by Williamson? Okay. Tina? Tina, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. It's on, you're on.
Okay. So my name is Tina DeNegro. I'm with Local Government Support Services. We were hired by the town to work on the 2024 accounting transactions for the town. We started, it was either right at the end of September, early October is when we began our engagement. We were charged with basically bringing all of the activity in the accounting system current and reconciled through the end of December. We do have the bank accounts reconciled through December 31st, 2024. The only bank account similar to what Nicole experienced is the water account. Which serves as the depository account for any water billing receivables that folks pay for their utility billing, and transfers to other accounts to pay abstracts or transfer monies to cover payroll that are spread across the various water districts. Right now, we have your consolidated checking account within $36.98 of being reconciled. The payroll account within $67.82. We also went through a very similar process with Nicole. We ticked and tied every deposit and check that ran through the town's accounts for the year. And we feel very comfortable with these numbers. We have so I forget, Nicole, exactly. We had 14 bank accounts on the books when we started. Through the course of 24, the town did consolidate the bank accounts down to 7, which is going to be far more manageable for your new accounting firm to manage, as well as for you as board members and lay folks to understand, I think, where the monies are in the individual funds and in the bank accounts. I frequently see that when the more bank accounts that you have, the more turned around you can get when it comes to transferring funds back and forth, and it becomes difficult to account for those. When we started, the activity in the bank accounts had been posted through, reconciled just in the one bank account through January. And then the only activity that at the time was posted on your accounting system were the abstracts, the checks that had been written through the course of the year. So we posted all of the abstracts into the accounting system. We posted all of the payroll journals into your system. We brought in the utility billing receipts from your utility billing system and posted all of those. And again, with all that said, we're pretty darn close with your cash reconciliation. So we also in our field of work with you helped process payroll and filed the New York 45 and 941s for your fourth quarter. And in general, just assisted anyone there personnel wise at the town. Filed your retirement, paid bills. We assisted through the budget process this year to help put a budget together for the town. And right now, leading off of what Nicole was saying, so when we started, the only balances in the accounting system were just the cash balances. So right now, if you were to run a trial balance on 2024, all you would see is the equivalent of cash, and that being offset to fund balance. So now that the work for 2023 has been completed, we can take those balances, put those on the 2024 books so that you would have well-represented fund balances at the end of 24, which is what your new accountants will need to reconcile the work in 25.
Got questions, sir? Maybe you got a question?
Tina, so I don't think we have anything, but will you be able to provide us with like a year-end statement so that we can see by fund? Because as you know, we went through our budget process without really knowing what our fund balance was, so we
Right,
could kind of
so-
know where we're gonna start.
Yeah, so in order to do that, we have to roll forward, right, the fund balances that Nicole just, well, she did her work, now we're waiting for your auditor to finish 23.
Okay, so that has to happen.
Then that has to happen, and then those then come on the books in 24, so that you can see what the impact of all of the transactions have on your 24 bucks. So we are still a step behind, but once given those figures, we'll get them on the books as quickly as possible.
Oh, are there, thanks, Mike. Are there any outstanding items at the end of 2024? Other than the small balances and the cash that's not reconciled? Is there any other outstanding items?
The water funds. So, Nicole and I met a number of times to try and help each other identify where some of the discrepancies could be. The water funds in particular, there is a large volume of activity that takes place on a monthly basis. Because this represents everybody paying their water bills. I would make the assumption that at the end of 2023, there should have been deposits and transits as a part of a reconciling item for that particular bank account. And I would expect there would be deposits in transit at the end of 24. But there is not the reconciling process in place to be able to tie out the cash receipts that posts from your utility billing system into your general ledger system. So I can see, for example, I might see in the month of May, for example, that total receipts for the water districts equaled $43,000 in change. But if you look at the bank statement, there's $90,000 worth of deposits. And again, that's not a problem, but there's no way to tie them out. Because, for example, you receive credit card payments and ACH payments for utility billing. If I was a customer and I paid my bill on the last day of the month, I'm going to get credit in the utility billing system for making that payment on the 30th of the month. But that bank activity is not going to hit till the following bank statement in the next month. So there is some work there that needs to happen. And both Nicole and I have made recommendations that your new accountants are going to need to sit and really understand the process that takes place with the utility billing system to clearly identify the correct reports that show what the activity is that runs through the account.
And that utility billing system is Williamson Law?
Correct. And I'm not suggesting that the system isn't working.
Yeah.
I have not noticed anything with the utility billing system, but I also have no way of identifying sources for you. That really is, like I said, sitting next to probably your water clerk and watching the process. Really being able to follow a full transaction through from the point of receiving the payment, putting it into the utility billing system, getting the report off the utility billing system, and then seeing if you can tie that to the bank statement. One deficiency in the current setup with Williamson Law Book is that it is not breaking out your water usage from the debt service charges. It is lumping them together under one revenue line. So there will be some accounting, some adjustments that will need to be made to split that out. But I do believe, well, I don't know, 'cause this is only year 2 with this system, but there will likely be some adjusting entries made by your auditors to split those out.
And that's because Williamson doesn't allow them to split it out, or it just got set up that way?
I don't know that answer.
And you have had conversations with Single Source so that they're aware of where you're starting off, or?
No, I have not spoken with them.
To make a connection, okay,
I've sent, emails.
okay. I just wanna make sure if there's questions from you and you need to ask them tonight, you can, or you're gonna do that offline.
It would be easy.
Okay. Thank you, Tina.
So I think in all of our many conversations that I've had with Nicole and Tina, and Scott on this, it sounds like from 2022 to 2023, changing the software system is, probably didn't get done with the oversight that it should have been done with. And there were a number of differences from the way things were set up in KVS to the way they were set up in Williamson. And I think just one of the things that, I've heard you, Nicole, and Tina, I've heard you say is one of the issues with Williamson is that you can't go back and fix things.
Correct.
Which I think, made it difficult once, sort of the way it was set up and probably being confusing and new and not, coded the way that it was used to being coded, that because it got behind, it just stayed behind because they were told they couldn't go back and correct things. So I think it was just, a number of issues that unfortunately led to the predicament that the town found itself in. But I think, we're in a better place now. Things are reconciled, right? No money's missing. We have a bookkeeping firm going forward. So,
Sorry, Tina, one more question. So, as we stand at the end of 24, are you comfortable that our receivables are correct on our books, especially like if there's an issue with the water? Would there be receivables there from water that would still be?
There most definitely should be receivables, but I don't have the balance sheet numbers to even bring on to your trial balances for 24 yet. So right now, if you were to run a trial balance report, you would only see cash and fund balance, and the two equal each other. So unfortunately, until we get those on, that will help bring to light whether or not the balances are appropriate. And again, there's a measurement period there. I did have a conversation with the water clerk to try and understand the timing of the billing cycles. And that's actually where we're gonna have to lean into your auditors, because they've been preparing the receivables year over year. You're gonna want them to remain consistent, and I'm not actually familiar with the period of measurement that they used to determine those receivables.
I got one comment. I know Williamson Law didn't do us any justice in the town, but there's state audit from 2017 to 21, there was no Williamson Law. And we have no idea what happened back then. I think we should investigate what happened. I mean, it was a lot worse than it is right now. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so, So Tina, though, after you get the numbers from Nicole, and Nicole, whatever you're transferring over, our, Municipal County, we have receivables, right? There will be water bills and tax bills that have not necessarily been paid, or doesn't it track?
So I've reconciled cash and fund balance, and your auditor, I think your auditor has always proposed your accruals in the past, your auditor has, I ran a trial balance of where it exists with the updated cash, updated fund balance, he's proposing all of your accrual adjustments, like we haven't done anything with your payable, there was no payables recorded, no receivables recorded in 2020.
But wouldn't there be, like, when you bill out taxes, you put a receivable on your books, and as people are paid, those receivables are
I would
released?
imagine that exists in your water software.
Okay.
That doesn't exist for the taxes, the taxes just come over. What that probably exists in your tax software, like outside of
Oh, outside of
this.
the
There was
supervisor's
not
books.
even those,
Okay,
the receivable counts 380 and the payables are 600, like that wasn't even included in the system. So like nothing was posted for that in 2020.
so you're saying those balances are created in another, like, in the clerk's books,
I can't
she would
speak
have.
for her, because I look at nothing of the
Okay.
records, but I would hope that she creates the receivable and that, because otherwise, at the end of the year, when she's moving those unpaid amounts to the tax bill, there has to be some sort of support for that.
Okay.
I did tie your re-levies were submitted and included on your 2024 tax bills. And those monies were received, and you can tie that back to documents that are on your tax warrant. That would be for folks who had unpaid water balances due. And I do know this fall, the clerk did submit re-levies to the county for your 2025 tax bills. And again, that can be seen on your tax warrant.
Okay, thank you.
You good, Nicole? Is that it?
I'm good.
Dina, you have anything else to add?
No, I would just encourage you to start looking forward. I really don't think looking back and spending any more money looking backwards is gonna be very beneficial for the town. I think you've made great strides with the work that you've done, this year. And now you can start looking forward and planning.
So with respect to looking back, one of the things that I think I heard both of you say is that when you look back, you have to, you're going back to the audited financial numbers. So looking back is only as good as those numbers are. And, you know, I think pre-2022, right, back to the time Ed's talking about, I think they just made numbers work. And I don't think that was the way that the audits should have been done, but that was the way that they were done. So going back isn't gonna help fix that problem. So, am I stating that right? I mean.
Correct. It's you know, it's more taxpayer dollars to try and one misaccounting, you know, you could accidentally have posted your water, 1 month's worth of water receivables twice. The difficulty we had is you have three sources. You have your local accounting records on your accounting system. You have your annual financial reports, which are filed with the state, and then you have your audited financial statements. Three sources, and none of the three of them agree with each other. So where do you start? Usually it's your audited financial statements is where you have to build off of. And that is why there's been so much confusion and why this has been a difficult process, because Nicole and I are coming at it from the accounting, your internal records, the state's looking at your annual financials, and then you've got your audited financials with a whole nother set of numbers. So normally you would take your audited financial numbers and move forward with those.
So,
Strongly encourage each year, like after you have the audit, that they present to you, they discuss with you, you go over their actual proposed audit adjustments, so you know like what's being adjusted in your system, and it's not just being accepted, like look through them, make sure they seem reasonable, like when you're adjusting cash, that should really be strong communication, like when I go in to do an audit, I should not be adjusting cash, and if I am, then I'm not making that decision, I'm saying to board or management, these are the proposed adjustments, you make sure that you agree with them. So I guess just like making sure that board has understanding of what's actually being adjusted in the audit. I would also strongly encourage, I have 2 policies to just do the bank reconciliation policy, journal entry policy. Really structured policies, procedures with prepare, review process.
we've got them somewhere.
Because, that was the one hard thing for me to do, was that I'm looking at journal entries that were posted with no support attached. So like, you never, they don't seem like they're wrong, but it would have been so much more helpful to say like, what was the intention of this journal entry? What was she trying to affect? The intention was good, but it was very hard to kind of understand what was trying to be done. The reviewer of all of those should just be looking at any support that's being attached to general journal adjustments that are being made outside your normal payable receivable process.
So Tina, you had a hard time getting Williamson to work, you were telling me? You wanna elaborate on that?
Yeah, so,
Our version of Williamson.
right, so we had to, so in October, we essentially had to reconstruct 10 months worth of activity in your accounting system. And some of the features in the system were glitchy and we could not get them to work. I did make a number of phone calls and had to get support from them. To my knowledge, I still don't think that the cash receipts import feature is working. I worked with them on at least 3 or 4 occasions to try and correct what that did for us is it just slowed us down. KVS, even I know they were sold out and you were forced to have to try and make a decision on where to go, but the KVS system is a far more sophisticated accounting system, and Williamson Mallbook it just isn't. So you actually took a step backwards when you went with Williamson Mallbook, which I'm sure if I was a bookkeeper working in KVS and then had to switch to Williamson Mallbook, and you would have had significant challenges. And just understanding how the system works. It
Okay,
works
so-
for, go ahead.
No, let me finish.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Tina.
No, go ahead, Tina.
It would have been very difficult for any bookkeeper in that position to try and understand, especially working with KVS, which is just Williamson Law Book is separate databases. So you can make an adjustment. Nicole's adjustments that she's making, for example, or the auditor makes in 23 will not roll forward. We have to manually put entries on your books to make the 24 numbers match your year ending 23. Any accounting system, if you use QuickBooks or any other small business accounting system, if you make an entry on December 31st of one year, it automatically updates your January 1st balances. Williamson is not built that way. And I'm not sure that, I don't think you folks understood that, and I certainly don't think that your former bookkeeper did either. And that is that makes it very, very challenging.
So, moving forward, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole and Tina, we've got a good hard line in the sand with financials? And it's,
I think
in layman's speak, it's not cost effective for us to go back to 2010 and figure out what's wrong? We've got clean financials for 2 years and fix it? I mean, move forward from there?
well, for 2 years, both Nicole and I have been able to identify and trace all of the checks and the deposits exclusive of just the one water account. So, I mean, that's 2 years worth of detail that each of us have reviewed and touched, so, we've identified all your funds. That's our recommendation from the years that we've spent out in the field, but of course, that is up to you ultimately to decide.
Jeff, you got anything? Brian? Steve?
No.
Linda?
I'm good.
Ed?
I'm good.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Tina. Soon as, we'll make a decision tonight on what the auditor will do, and then we'll get you the numbers for 23.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hand me that back? Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, yes, thank you.
You wanna- for the meeting or something with
I would just stick with the accounting stuff for now, and I'd call some resource up.
it? Margaret, Sarah, you guys have a presentation you wanna do?
We didn't have anything officially prepared, if you have questions for us, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm not, this is the second time I've done it since, August. I know, I'm sorry.
Linda, you got
Yeah,
questions?
I have a few questions if you wouldn't mind.
You want me to?
Yeah, unfortunately, otherwise people can't always hear.
They can hear us though, right?
They could, I think, earlier. I don't know, I've just quit listening to it.
So apparently we received an email with some recommendations on the processes that are gonna be done.
Yep.
And it says the bills come here, the secretary will scan and send them to single source, and the vouchers will be put into QBO. I thought we were gonna have somebody come on site and handle the vouchers.
Well,
Margaret, that pulled it
I
down.
have to pull it down, sorry. Anyway, we do plan to be in the town of Shelby offices on a very regular basis. Definitely usually for payroll and to prepare the vouchers. At this particular time of year, we're just getting started with the town, and it's also very busy at the same time. So we're really trying to juggle that, making sure that we are getting here as much as we can. So I don't anticipate that the scanning will always be the norm. I believe that we will be here in order to be able to get everything in the system.
Once you get it up.
Once we get up and
So
running.
this is not a long-term thing,
No,
this is
no,
just
it's
a
not.
temporary.
Yes.
Yeah, we're still ironing out the processes, getting familiar with the town's current processes, making sure that we're understanding the level of the number of bills that are coming in on a monthly basis, the fund activity, that sort of thing. And as we get through these first couple of months, we'll be able to iron out, okay, this is the process that we need to have in place. I've been here at least once a week for the last few weeks, as my field work for my other jobs has allowed, to make sure that we're getting everything
So can
in
you-
line.
Can you just help me understand what is the process? So we receive an invoice?
Yep, so when an invoice comes in, we'll obtain a copy, whether virtually through being scanned in, depending on if we're on site that day, or last Friday, for instance, I was here putting in the majority of the vouchers for February. As soon as we receive those invoices, we'll create the voucher, that's the cover sheet for each of the
Can I
bills.
stop you? Are they coded first by the departments? Cause who's deciding what GL account they're going to?
So typically for what we've seen from doing February's vouchers, all the highway bills are coming pre-coded
Okay.
to us, because not being the ones working in the department, we're not aware of what account code necessarily these are being purchased out of. So ideally, the department heads would tell us, this is what account code we're purchasing against. And then we would create the voucher, which is the cover sheet to go on the invoices, and then enter that into QuickBooks. Once everything is entered in QuickBooks for that month, we would have a cutoff date so that any bills received after such and such time will go on to the next month's voucher or abstract to be audited and paid.
It looks like that cutoff is gonna be Thursday before our
Correct.
meeting, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah,
That's
that's about-
hopefully gonna give us a little time to look at the invoices rather
Yeah.
than an hour before the meeting.
Right, because we want to make sure that we have enough time to get everything prepared and sufficient time to get the abstract over to you.
So the claim voucher form has several signature lines on it, one of which is to, for someone, whoever has like received the goods or service is confirming that that has happened. We, in the past, have not been signing that. Should we not, I mean, good accounting practice says you would sign that to
We would
confirm.
recommend that if, when goods are received, whether on the voucher itself or on the invoice, either one would be fine, as long as someone is signing off, just say that the goods or services were received, provided by the town.
Okay, and then also there's another box on there that acknowledges that the
That they were
person whose
audited.
budget line it's being charged to has reviewed that voucher, and they are agreeing that those items should be charged to their budget. As a board member, I'd like to see that signed off also, because as we sit and review those, we don't have any idea unless we're sure somebody else has pre-looked at them, that they're going to the right place. So are you going to, is that gonna be part of your process to make sure that those voucher claim forms are signed off?
Yeah, Linda, I wanna get some clarity, when we're doing the putting the vouchers together and inputting it into QBO, we are verifying at that time that the voucher is in the proper account. So I guess I'm wondering if you're happy with us to make sure that whatever it says on there is going in there, or if it needs to go back to the department head to sign off on it again.
I'm not sure, other than according, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but at the AOT training, those boxes are there to confirm that what you entered, even though you're checking it, you could have fat fingered something and it could end up in the wrong place.
Right.
So it was a second check by the department head that they have agreed that it did get entered into, in this case, QBO correctly. Are we gonna put that as or do you not feel that that's?
That would ultimately be a board decision if you would like that to happen. We're fine with either way, because we're getting the account codes from them when we're entering the invoices and creating the vouchers. But ultimately it would be a board decision as far as procedure, how you would like that.
When you enter in QuickBooks, if you enter an invoice in an expense account, is the budget number there, would it tell you that it's over budget as you're entering or no?
Not while we're entering, so
Okay.
I would do a regular review of the budget to actual reports to ensure that everything is in line. And if something were looking to be getting close to the budgeted amount or about to go over, I would be in touch with
Okay,
the
so
town to ensure that.
It looks like we had 3 that were negative, so that's why I'm just wondering if, I don't know whether they got voted into the wrong place, or maybe we're still
And I can
working on
double-
getting the budget in.
We're still working on getting everything accurate, because we're still waiting. Obviously, Nicole and Tina are still working on getting everything tied out, so we don't have our 2024 end numbers yet. We're still working on making sure everything is set up properly within QBO.
Okay, and if we have the invoices, they'll be scanned into QBO. Do we need to keep a hard copy
I would,
attached, I
because
guess?
that's the original.
I'm sorry, not keep the hard copy, but do they need to be attached? You're printing, I guess, you have the invoice, you're printing the claim form, they're getting attached when you're going through that process of entering.
So we're creating the vouchers and sending them back to be attached to the original and hard copy invoices that are on site at the town for
Okay, so-
your audit purposes.
Okay, so again, that process is assuming you are not here, right? Because if you are here,
We can, yes, once someone is here, but one of us
Okay,
will attach.
okay. And then one more question, would you look for vendors to email invoices to a QBO account?
They certainly could do that, yes.
Which would help if for some reason you were not gonna be on site.
Yes, and then.
We would still need to confirm the account code
Well,
with the department.
We would
head.
forward it then to the department head for review and approval.
Okay. we did confirm that checks will be cut here by our secretary, will handle all the check. You will send the file though,
Right, well,
to be,
it's not a file per se, we just let them know when it's ready to, you basically go into QuickBooks, hit the button to print, and it'll print that run of checks from the abstract.
okay. And if the board wanted, read-only access,
To the QuickBooks?
to be able to see invoices or look at bank statements or, you know, check on whether things are caught up or not, is that an issue for you at Single Source?
I don't think that it is.
We can check with our QuickBooks.
Well,
Whether the
as
license
far as-
allows for
yeah,
read-
Oh, yeah, yes, because there is a number of people that are allowed. We have an accountant access, and then you would have regular access, but I believe we can give you a read-only, just to view access.
Just have to look at
Yeah.
the settings within the system.
I'm sure.
And I'm asking because you would have invoices attached to any expense, right? So if somebody wanted to look up an invoice, as opposed to coming here and pulling through our files, we could access the invoice through QBO. Sarah's not sure.
Depending on the invoice and how it's being scanned into us, yes. And
We
what we
should-
have access to.
Yeah, we should be, well, obviously, if we have the invoices, somehow they can get scanned and put in.
Okay.
That's fine.
I think that's it. For me.
Yeah, I got one question on your budget overview sheet. There's no, overview of all the water districts. Will we be getting them eventually, or? Cause there's, on one of the line items, there's attorney contractual is 80,000, but we put 3,000 in each district. And I think that should be, you know,
I'll take a look at that to make sure that
Yeah.
it was entered properly.
it'd be like, it's like 39,000 for all 13 water districts.
I'll take a look through that, make sure that was properly counted.
You good, Ed?
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yep.
Heather?
I'm good,
Caroline?
good.
Thanks,
You're very welcome.
Margaret, Sarah?
Hey, Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
should we stop
Can I
and
ask
start
another
over again,
question?
because this
Sorry.
is not picking up at
So,
all?
I don't know, you don't have to go up there, I just wanna,
Can I
did
do
you
it?
see
Just
the,
don't say
bank
nothing.
reconciliation policy